Hi, my name is Audra. Thanks for joining me today as we continue through the book of Acts. Today we're going to look at Acts chapter 12, verses 1 through 19. And this is an awesome and miraculous story. And I know as Luke was writing it, he was probably asking Peter and anyone else involved to tell him every detail so he could accurately write it down because it's so amazing. So thanks for joining me, and let's dive into God's Word. So just a reminder, as the early Christian church was starting, the Jews were not for it. They thought what the Christians were doing was wrong, that Jesus was not the Messiah, that they were going against the Old Testament and God's laws. So we have King Herod. We see his name right at the beginning of this section. This is not the same Herod that was king when Jesus was born. This was that King Herod's grandson. And this King Herod wanted the approval of the Jews. So he decided he was going to find the leaders of the Christian church and execute them. And even though the Christian church is growing and growing, as we've seen through the book of Acts, it's still in minority compared to the Jewish population of that time. And so we have King Herod who keeps his word and arrests and executes James, the brother of John. And the commentary says that this happened approximately 41 AD. And Stephen, if you remember, he was stoned and put to death. That was AD 31. The next person on King Herod's hit list, if you will, is Peter. And if you read these verses, it sounds like Herod is extremely paranoid. He arrests Peter, puts him in prison, attaches chains to him, attaches those chains to guards who are sleeping next to him, and also posts 2 more guards near the doors of the prison. The night before Peter's trial or presumed execution, an angel of God appears in the prison cell. Peter's chains fall off. The angel tells him, "Pick up all of your belongings." Peter's able to walk past all of the guards out of the prison and onto the city. And the iron gate to the city just opens up before him. And he follows the angel for about 1 street. In the text, it says 1 street, which we can assume is 1 block. And then the angel disappears. This whole time, Peter thinks it's a vision. Have you ever had to get up in the middle of the night and kind of stumble either to the restroom or to the kitchen or wherever, and you're not fully there? I think this is what Peter was feeling. He was just woken up from sleep, walked out of the prison, wasn't sure what is going on, and then finally woke up and realized it was real. One interesting thing that I read from the commentary is that he said that Peter must have trusted God so much to be able to sleep in the prison cell. And I think that's something very important to take note of, that Peter was fast asleep, chained between 2 guards. And so God had to send an angel to wake him up and lead him out. So when Peter finally woke up all the way, he realized, oh my gosh, I'm free. What should I do next? There was a group of believers praying at Mary's house, who was the mother of John Mark. And Peter knew he needed to go there. The text doesn't mention Mary's husband, so we can assume she was probably a widow, probably left pretty well off because there was her home and also an inner courtyard in the gate where Peter is going to knock. I think the next part is hilarious and straight out of a silly kids program or sitcom. Peter goes to the gate and knocks, and Rhoda, a servant of Mary, comes to the gate. She hears Peter's voice and is so excited that she just leaves him there. She runs back in, tells all the believers, Peter is here, but he wasn't right there next to her, so they didn't even believe her. And so Peter keeps knocking, and finally they let him into the house. When he gets in, Peter is able to tell them all of this amazing miracle. And then he leaves because he needs to get to safety. And in this account, Luke is purposefully vague because he doesn't want to tell anyone where Peter is going because Peter needs to stay safe. I wanted to share a couple interesting points that I learned from the commentaries from this section is Acts 12, 1 through 19. When you see the mention of the guardian angel, The Jews believed in that time that a guardian angel of a person could appear in their likeness. So this is why they just kind of like, oh, it's just his angel. That's what that means. And another interesting thing to note is that even though the believers were gathered all night long praying for Peter, they were still shocked to see him there alive and in person. So the final couple verses of this text show us that, of course, Herod is outraged that Peter escaped. And so he interrogates the soldiers because they wake up and they are so confused. They can't give him any information, and so he takes their lives. And then he heads out of town since Passover, the feast is all over. Herod heads back to his palace, and that's the end of this section. As I was reading this section, I was thinking of how these verses, this account, reminds us that God can do miracles. That is the only explanation for Peter's escape. But then I remembered that at the beginning of the section that Herod executed James, the brother of John, and he didn't provide an escape for him. Does this mean that Peter was better than James? No. Does this mean that God loved Peter more than James? No. It just means that God has a plan for everything, and we don't see all the details. We don't know what his overall plan is. As I wrap up this lesson today, I just want to ask you, what do you need to trust God with today? Is there a miracle that you need? Is there something that you need to surrender to him? He might choose to do a miracle, and he might not. But he is still God, and he still loves you, and he still has your life in his hands. So just come before him, worship him, pray to him, and trust him. Thanks again for joining me today. See you next time.